I'm Jason Gilbo here at Fantasy Football Cafe, talking about the Jets, the dysfunctional bunch out of New York. You got Geno Smith already being out with an injury, not due to being on the playing field, but just being sucker punched in the locker room. So, it just sums up the Jets right off the bat coming into 2015 about how their fantasy team and value is going to be. Um, you got Ryan Fitzpatrick, who's going to lead the Jets now, which I like that for Brandon Marshall, and I like that for Eric Decker. Um, a little less than Geno Smith being back there and his inaccuracy and not being consistent. So that's going to bode well for those two, but still not a lot not a lot of upside with them being in New York. Um, so it's going to hurt, but I'll talk about them in a little bit. Jets have been a pretty run-heavy team over the past few seasons, mainly Rex Ryan leading a defense, mentality and then having the ground and pound behind him, as well as just not having a consistent quarterback under center. That's been the biggest issue. Chan Gailey's going to be here. He's going to lead the offense, runs a spread offense. I think with Fitzpatrick under center, it's going to be a little more consistent for Brandon Marshall and Decker. I think you're putting them in 800 to 900 yards, maybe 5 touchdowns apiece. I think is a pretty good floor for them, but of course the upside's not as high as around the other guys. They're likely going to be your leading target getters, but they're also not an efficient offense. So, I do think things will be fairly equal. And I do like Decker going much later in drafts than Marshall, just because he's kind of off the radar, and I don't think Decker gets enough credit. So. That's kind of my stance on those two. Of course, there's better options around them to look at in drafts. And, the Jets also have Devin Smith, a burner they picked up in the NFL draft. But there's just not going to be enough value going in the passing game for all three to really get anything going. So that's kind of Smith is off the radar for now. But, he's got that home run threat potential. I think he's going to be pretty good here if they can get their offense moving in the right direction. So the running game, it's got some value. Chris Ivory being the lead back, 4.7 yards per carry, 17 touchdowns and 636 attempts in his career. His only lack is in the passing game. But Ivory's going to lead the team in attempts. I see him getting a nice 230 or so. You're likely going to see 1,000 yards, 7 8 touchdowns, which is very solid value from an RB2 standpoint. Especially if you're kind of pushing for late running backs. I think he's a strong runner. If they can manage any sort of passing game, it's going to help balance out that offense and make them a little more productive. The Jets added Zach Stacy and Stephen Ridley, but they're not my radar. I'm looking at Ivory being the lead guy, and probably the top guy out of that entire team is if I'm drafting anyone, just because of running backs being shallow in the league. And I think he's got some pretty nice floor. Maybe has a little room for upside if the offense can get anything going. So Jets get a bad rap, but probably deservingly so. But Decker, Ivory, Brandon Marshall still need to be on your radars. You can probably snag them up pretty late in drafts, especially Decker. Ivory's still a nice target. So there are some guys with some fantasy value out there in New York.